to space or something.
I know. It's exciting. So happy you're here. Hello, hello. Hello, welcome everyone. Thank you for bearing with us for this wonderful live. I'm so excited to be here, especially since we tried to do this yesterday and and my Wi-Fi and technology just would not work. So, welcome. Anke, would you like to introduce yourself?
Well, thank you. Thanks for having me. It's exciting. It's exciting to be here. So yeah, I don't know. I don't know where to start. Like I've been around for a long time, so this introduction could potentially be a long story. So I'm originally from Germany, but yeah, haven't lived in Germany since 1994. So I lived in Australia for a few years, and I lived in the UK, and I've been based in the south of Spain for getting close to 18 years. Time flies when you're having
Wow.
fun, and when I first decided to move to Spain, I decided to ditch my software developer job and start a creative sewing business. You know, you've got to let the creative fairy out. and, and so I did that for many years until I sort of came around full circle, and I'm now supporting mostly coaches, like therapists, sometimes authors, speakers, like usually solopreneurs, but they have one thing in common. They are visionaries, right? You know, they're your ideas, people like your big picture thinkers with big visions, right? And they want to build an online business because that's the way to reach and impact more people and really make an impact. So that's the plan. But the problem with the thing we get on so well, because I have a lot of that, so we kind of really connect on that creative level. But the thing that my clients find is that when it comes to now, okay, so we've got this idea for, let's do a virtual retreat, let's do this online program, let's do a membership, let's do a podcast, let's do whatever. In order to make it happen, you need to come down and bring it, ground it down on, and kind of bring it down onto a level of detail that the visionary just can't stand, right? It's like you can see their eyes glaze over. It starts to get really heavy. And sometimes they have no idea about tech. So this gets a real, like this turns into a real hurdle really quickly. And sometimes they're quite savvy, but then they're still like, oh God, they're getting 80%, and then they get bored and impatient. And then the next idea is calling, and so they go from one idea to the next, and none of them really sees the light of day, right? And so the thing is, when their eyes glaze over, mine light up, right? So my little engineering mind is just like, ooh, now this gets interesting. Now we have an idea, now we have a vision, now it gets interesting to me. So and then I'm the one who will go and say, okay, no, wait, now we need to do this, wait, come back here, let me take care of this bit. So the plan is to take a vision and actually make it happen.
Wow. That's amazing. I mean, a lot of times people have the vision and the how really freaks them out, and it stops them from being able to believe in that vision and move forward with it. So, how do you get people to really express their vision and let go of that how?
Well, they can't let go of the how, right? So they figure this, basically they have two ways of, because if you want to make it happen, the how has to be kind of dealt with at some point, right?
Yeah.
So if if we work together, then I'm going, you go, do your vision thing, I'll take care of the rest, right? And in any case, it's usually slow down to speed up. And I think sometimes it's hard for a visionary who's like, if they've got a million ideas in a minute. So it's literally like my middle name is wait, come back here, wait. One more step here and we're done at 100%, and don't run off at 85. So it's often like, wait, come back here, bring them, just basically grabbing them by the feet and dragging them down to the ground. So there's this connection, and they're not just floating in space. And it's fun. It's because it shows them that the creative process doesn't stop
Yeah.
when details enter the scene. And that's where usually, oh, okay, this was actually fun, I didn't realize. So
Yeah, and of course the how has to be dealt with, but a lot of times that's the bit there where the thought of the how makes us go,
Yeah.
like, I mean, for example, somebody who wants to start a podcast, you know, and and they have the whole kind of vision and they have it all worked out, and but then they don't take any action at all,
Yeah.
and it's taking that first step and really trusting it,
Yes.
isn't it?
And it's also a classic case. I mean, I've had people start their podcast. I've got a podcast, so I know how this rolls. And I always find, like, no matter what people are creating, like, it doesn't actually matter at all. If it feels hard, you're skipping steps. Always, right?
I say that again. If it
If it
feels
feels
hard,
hard, you're skipping steps. And the steps are sometimes surprisingly small, right? And we're like, oh, and especially when you're like visionary and you have this thing and you're kind of all enthusiastic and you just want to get it done, to go, wait, because most of the time when people come and say, oh, I've got it all worked out, I've got the podcast, I want to do this, that, I will ask them questions that they've never even thought of. Right? I will take that big picture idea and say, now, okay, how does that translate into who's going to be your guest? Right? How are we going to find those? What is the whole intention of it? How does it translate into the format? How does it translate into the frequency, into the length of the episode? And I've never come across somebody who was like, yeah, okay, I've got all that. Everybody's like, oh, never thought of that, right? So, and
yeah.
once you start thinking through that, all of a sudden the tech stuff kind of reveals itself. And for a podcast is one thing, but you see it really clearly. Oh, I want to have an online course thingy or a membership or something, right? And there's always this like, oh, no, I know exactly what I want. No, you don't. Like every single time somebody comes, well, I've got what they have clear is the intention, is the big vision, right? But then when it's like, oh, what platform should I use? Well, I don't know. We're not there yet. Like, it's
That would
tell
be
me,
me.
tell me if I sign up for your program or whatever the thing is. No, I've signed up for it. Now, what's the next thing I see? How does this roll now? What experience are you going to give me? And I've not come
Yeah.
across anybody who had the feeling that tech is difficult and a struggle and overwhelming and not so much even I don't get it, it's just it's too much stuff. I've not ever come across somebody who felt that way but had that customer experience really mapped out.
Mm.
Because when
'Cause
you do, all of a sudden you can tell, oh, no, I want you to come in and we want like a lovely welcome video. We want like a roadmap. Then we don't want to overwhelm you with stuff. So we want stuff to come out over time. Now there you've got your drip feed, don't you? Right? So you can already tell how this stuff translates into functionality. So once you think through what experience you actually want to create for your clients, then all of a sudden what you're looking for in a platform becomes more and more clear. And then you go in and it's just a question of, well, this one or that one, and then, well, I'll just pick one and go with it, right? But the whole process, it's like I always compare it to a hardware store, right? Some people love hardware stores and they go on a Saturday, it's like, ooh, let's go, let's just see what's there, right? And that's cool because that gives you inspiration for stuff that will even help you design something because you kind of see, because you can't ask for what you don't know exists. So just going exploring is really helpful. But if you just don't like hardware stores, you're not going to do that. Now, but if you go in there with no idea what you're trying to build, it's going to be overwhelming. And
yeah.
nobody can help you because what are you going to ask for, right?
Yeah, that's the bit, is not knowing what questions to ask.
Yep.
And not even knowing how to find those questions. And I think that step by step, which is what you help people do, is so important. So where would we start? Let's say we wanted to make a course and we wanted to put it on a website or some sort of portal or something. Then, like, do we start with just like the vision and then getting really, really clear on that, and then figuring out the how? Like, where do we start?
Well, I
Obviously, we
guess
start with a
really
vision.
starting, yeah, I think obviously we have an idea. I think something even gives us the idea to even want to build this, right? So there's usually something there. But I think the next part to dive into is like, okay, now what exactly is the outcome that I want for somebody who goes through that? And what is it exactly that I want them to have at the end of it? And then how, like, what do I need to give them as part of that program to guide them there? What do they need, in what order, and in what format? Right? So that's really the first thing that you want to like think about, and then I think, well, okay, if it's just an idea, I would say, ooh, let's just do like a pilot run. Let's just see whether this even has legs, whether like offer it to somebody, sell it, and then we'll see. I wouldn't even go to platforms or anything before I've sold it, right? Because you don't even know yet whether somebody even wants it.
Yeah. And so often we get involved in I'm going to start a podcast. I need a microphone. I need the lighting. I need all the hardware.
Every single time. Yep.
And it's, and it's, you could just go onto YouTube and try it for free. But here's the thing. It's that if I pilot it without really having clarity and it fails, then that freaks me out. Like there's a fear of failure that's coming up for me in that kind of situation.
Well, that's interesting though, because if you look at your pilot as an experiment, like I always think of like these things, it's a series, anything you do in your business, it's a series of experiments. Like you start off with an idea and a hypothesis, and you think, well, I think that would work like this, right? But then you can't ever know what's going on for other people, right? So it's always like, it's like chemistry experiments. Like, let's just see what happens. Sometimes you're right and sometimes you won't be. And any failure, like what if you were to see that as a stepping stone? A failure is always a stepping stone, and quite often a necessary one. Like it doesn't feel like it in the moment, but when you look back, any failure was always the thing that like, oh, actually I couldn't have gotten the idea that actually worked without that thing that didn't. Because that's where I learned the thing, and that's the thing that made me pivot and go like, wait, no, that doesn't fly. Let's just see offer the same thing to different people, or offer something slightly different. And what you come out with next, you couldn't have come up with without the failure. So what if you look at it as a series of experiments, and the experiments that don't go your way are the stepping stones that help you to get the thing that does go your way.
I love that, because what we associate with the word failure is huge, and it can make us either not show up in the first place, or it can make us quit at the first hurdle.
Yeah.
And then think, oh, well, the whole thing was a bad idea, or it was, and or I don't know how to do it, and it's too overwhelming. So I love that you slow that down. Because that's the thing with visionaries, right? Like visionaries, we're so excited and passionate about our idea, and then we start going because we get momentum, and then
we also have a lot on it, right? Then we have a lot on it. It kind of means a lot whether that flies or it doesn't, right?
Yeah.
So that can come in. But I think at the end of the day, if it doesn't fly in the form you might have thought initially, then it's like that usually means there's something better around the next corner, right?
Yeah. And I think it's that realigning that word failure, maybe choosing a different word, like experiment is a great word. Then, or, it doesn't work the way we expect it. Doesn't mean it doesn't work. It's that language is everything. Because when I think about my experiment was a failure, that's really different to I'm a failure.
Totally. Yep. And I think taking it into that realm of experiment is really helpful in that sense. And I always compare anything we do when we build a business. I always think of it like creating art, right? It's not paint by numbers. Like there is no, I do one step and it's perfect, right? You're creating something new. There will always be things like, I thought this would work, but then you can't look, or if you look at it like you climb a mountain, but you climb a summit that hasn't been climbed before, right? So you can go to base camp. Yeah, everybody's gone to base camp, but nobody has a detailed map of that last bit, right? And
Mm.
you learn from other people and you can get Sherpas who help you, whatever. But that last bit, there is no map. You're going to have to be prepared to go right without knowing whether around the corner there's a big rock that's fallen and you can't get through and you have to come back and find another way, or whether it goes straight to the top, or you go, oh shit, no, I can't like back. So you just have to be prepared for that journey. Otherwise, you have to get a job or get a franchise wherever somebody else has done that for you, right?
Yeah. Yeah, because if it was easy, we'd all be doing it, right?
Oh yeah.
Okay,
It's a
okay.
red pill kind of thing, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let's say though that I have this wonderful idea. I'm going to have a course or a podcast or I'm going to show up and do lives or whatever it is, and then and I work with you, and I'm thinking, okay, so how am I going to do this and so on? What about that fear of actually showing up? That confidence to appear, because a lot of times we're good at the copywriting. We can follow, the lessons in tech and so, but then the actually putting ourselves out there is hard.
Yeah, I guess it's because the mind's going again that judgment day, right? It's like we are out to be judged. And I think what I really find helpful there is to realize how little other people care about what we do. It's like we kind of think, oh my God, like the hair and whatever we think is like other people will judge the life out of. Most of the people never notice, right?
Yeah, that's so true. That is so true. We always think the whole internet is
Yeah.
watching if we go
Well,
live or
that's the
whatever
thing.
it
And
is.
if you watch your, I always say, like, I learn most when I observe myself consuming, like buying, or I'm on social media and I'm like, well, I don't know, what, like you don't pay that much attention to somebody. And actually, copywriter, Stephen Lewis, Australian copywriter, I just love his LinkedIn headline says something like, I write words that make your phone ring smooth, right? The guy's good. And he said something that really, like, it kind of set my head straight in a little in a way that, because you know how they always say you should write for 10-year-olds, right? When you write on the internet, you should write for 10-year-olds. And then, yeah,
Yes.
people have like attention span of a goldfish, right? And you come from that condescending kind of place. And he says, wait, yeah, you have to write for 10-year-olds, but not because people are stupid and not because people don't have attention span. It's because your stuff is a tiny drop in the ocean of things that they have to pay attention to every day, right?
Yeah.
And that's like, oh, yeah. I mean, that sets my head straight on that front, but it also applies to nobody cares if I show up and I kind of, it's like people don't care that much, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think the more you do it, the easier that gets to get your head around. Because, there was a time, even probably earlier this year, where I would have freaked out when the technology failed yesterday. I just expect that I go on Google Chrome, I go on StreamYard, I've sent you the link, and then we just go live and it all works. And then when it doesn't, I was so calm yesterday. I was like, okay, I'll get in my car. I'll see if I can get 4G. I'll see if I can help, and I tried all of these different things. And that's from lots of experience of experimenting,
Yeah.
and then it's like, okay, that didn't work, but that's okay. We'll figure out something else, and it's that.
But I think that's exactly it, right? That approach, that sums it up, right? If you're up in your head and you think, oh my God, what are they going to think? People are going to think I'm unprofessional. I've announced the thing, and now and I'm not coming, and or what will she think of me, and what will everybody else think of me? And my dad was right when he said you're never going to be any good at this. Like when your mind's off, you're not going to be thinking of, oh, I could jump in the car and see, like problem solving, a clear mind that allows you to problem solve. You're not going to have that when you're all up in your head and make this stuff mean things that really doesn't mean for other people, right? So, and I
Exactly.
think experience is really the bit that helps with that, and I think it helps to remember when you're new in something. Okay, I just don't have the experience yet that allows me to handle this like smoothly and efficiently, you know?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, for sure. I love this conversation because it is that experience of realizing, hey Genesis, it's hey Geneva, hey everybody else watching, jump in and say hi. Yeah, I love that, and actually Geneva's online with us right now, and I know Geneva has tried different business models and kind of finding the exact niche, and those are all experiments. Right.
Yeah, of
And it'd
course.
be really easy. I've done that as well. I keep changing the niche and kind of going, okay, so because confidence is huge. Like you say, I'm a confidence coach. That's massive. And I can cover lots of different things, but it doesn't mean I have to cover them all. And certainly not all at once.
Yeah, yeah. And I think it's that, like, that's where I think that looking at building a business as a creative process, looking at it as, okay, you're creating a piece of art here, right? And there's part skill, there's part practice. Like no artist is going to just go and chuck some paint on the wall and see, like they start out, there is some vision, some idea, but there is a practical element to it. If you want to create a painting, well, you better know a little bit about paint and about how to use that brush, so otherwise you can't really express yourself if you don't
Yeah,
have the practical. So there is that bit, but that's not what makes it art, is it?
it isn't. No, it
It's
isn't. And
that
even,
you go beyond that, but then there's also like you don't really 100% know what's going to come out of this, and you might change direction in between. You might say, oh, like it is what I thought it would be, but I don't really like it. It doesn't really grab me. And that constant evolution, and you see that everywhere. I met this lady, Amy Simpkins, a rocket scientist, like a real one. And she goes, oh, rocket scientist, like that's boring. Everybody does that. She's quit it and did her own thing, right? And she wrote a book that's called Spiral, the process of innovation. Right. And we laugh because like I had on my website say, well, this thing is actually a process. It's the creative process in action. And I had a spiral shape in the middle of it, right? Because it's a sequence, and I've seen it in software development, I've seen it in sewing, I've seen it in translation, I see it in writing, like everywhere. It's that series of iterations, right? And you kind of, sometimes you feel like you're running around in circles, but you never really do, right? So this process isn't a straight line. If you want to give it a shape, it's a spiral. And if you just settle into that rather than try and make it a line because it needs to be linear process, if you just say, well, wait, this is a spiral, it's an iterative process. And it's the evolution of, with you learning new things. And then especially with a business where you think, well, you need to find that tripod between you, what you want to express, what you want to offer, that product, what shape that takes, and who is there who values it enough to pay you for it. It's those three elements. And you hardly ever going to find that like, oh, I have an idea, boom, sit there. No, usually it's like, the people I wanted to offer this are a little bit like, doesn't really quite sit. And you then either find something different to offer these people, or you offer that thing to someone else. And after a while you went, wait, actually, you can narrow it down. And it's that constant evolution, and if you just say, well, that's just how this goes, that's the fun part of it, then you
and
have a
it
much, much easier time.
and it should be fun. Like it should be fun. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Geneva's loving the creating art. Geneva, you are an artist if there ever was one. And I love this because we are experimenting and playing. And actually, just that kind of image of it being a spiral instead of it being linear is huge for me. I still remember when I learned to see the creation of a painting from background first, because my thing would be to draw the foreground first. That would just be the way my brain works. I would create, let's say I'm doing a little house and a little family outside the house. I would do all of that. And then I would try and paint the background, right, which is way harder. And so that learning to see that and work from the background forward is so different. It's not wrong either way, but it's just such a different process. And so what you're talking about with it not being linear and I just follow this as like a paint by numbers, but actually seeing it as that spiral is really beautiful imagery for my head.
Yeah, because I think because it takes a lot of pressure off, right?
Yeah.
Because it isn't always going to be, you're not going to judge every step by, is it really further ahead than the last one? So you can just relax, like whatever. It might be behind the last one, but that's just because you're on a loop and you're coming around, and then all of a sudden it gives you an entirely different perspective that allows you to move forward in a way that the linear process would never be able to do. So I think to just settle, and when you settle into that process and say it's a process of evolution, you have to grow into the person who can pull off what you want to pull off. You need to learn things in the process, and it's just like that adventure. And if you can just embrace that rather than constantly try and fight it, or constantly, are we there yet? Are we there yet? It's not a race either, right? Then you gain so much headspace that allows your creativity to really explode.
Yeah. And Geneva's just said, rather than thinking ABC, which is me as well, is looking at my business as a piece of art, and the spiral is freeing. Yeah. And the fact that the next step doesn't have to be a step ahead is such a relief.
Yeah. Because I think there's something there for like, sorry, the proven, like I have this little pet peeve with proven success formulas, because I really think they take people's minds away from that. And I'm not saying you should reinvent the wheel. Like, I want to leave this clear. It's not about reinventing the wheel and not learning from other people, because, I made dance costumes for I don't know how many artists. So I can give you a proven success formula for how to make a dress that really fits, right? Because I've made so many, I know exactly which step is better to do first and later. But if you talk about like a specific skill, by all means, follow the proven processes. But don't think you can build your whole business on that.
Yeah, absolutely. Because then it is just as you say, it's like buying a franchise.
Yeah.
So it's the proven formula, not the proven steps, unless you're buying a franchise. Yeah. Okay, so that's where I was actually going, is about dressmaking. I'm fascinated because, especially with one type of dress that I know that you've made, which is the flamenco dancer dress.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So when I was a little girl, my great aunt, my grandmother's sister, she had been to Spain, and she had a little doll with a yellow with black trim dress. It was like a replica, and I was obsessed with it. I don't know where it's gone, but I was obsessed with it. And it just was the most beautiful thing to me. How did you get into that?
Yeah, well, that's one of those typical, like, it's a classic story for what we've just talked about. Well, I mean, I've been a maker all my life. Like, I was that little kid, that weird kid that would pester grandma to teach her how to crochet and knit and anything that has threads in it, or I would take her tea towels and make dresses for my dolls from it. So that was me as a child. So, I've always been there. It was just never something that I even, I grew up in East Germany, so it wasn't something that was even on the cards to do professionally. So it was always a hobby that I had. And then I went to a holiday on a holiday to Peru, and I just thought, well, you know what? I'd have a better time if I just knew a little bit of Spanish. That's how I just started learning Spanish, just for the fun of it. Now, after I'd finished that course, I was like, okay, what am I going to do now with my newfound Spanish? So I go to trips to Spain. And I was living in London at the time. So, popping over. Now, I was an IT contractor. So you got time, you got money, off you go. And so I went on frequent trips, and I really fell in love with Granada. It was just like, oh my God, this place is magical. And all of a sudden there was this little voice that says, I could really see myself live here. I'd love to live in one of those like white little houses. And I'm like, okay then, what would happen if I really did that, right? So how could I pull this off? What would I do for a living, right? I'm like, well, I've got kind of intermediate, call it intermediate Spanish, but not good enough to go in a bank and work in a software development job. And I thought, well, would I even want that? Why? Let's wait. Let's just take a step back. Let's see what if I could have anything, what would I do? And literally, I remember the moment I thought that, I was I was cutting a flowery, ruffly dress on my dining table, and I had flamenco music playing in the background. I'm like, you know what? If I could have a little sewing studio where I could just make. And I wasn't thinking of dance costumes. I was thinking of flamenco inspired streetwear, right? Polka dots, ruffly blouses, stuff that I could wear in London without looking like a clown, right? So I wasn't even thinking of dance costumes. And so then I thought, well, let's see what exactly gets in the way of that. And frankly, I just couldn't think of anything. So I thought, well, let's just see what happens. That was my business plan. So I kind of thought, well, okay, let's just see. And I found myself a dressmaker who gave private classes, because then I got all insecure thinking, ooh, I'm not a real dressmaker, so I've never really learned this. I'm entirely self-taught. So I don't know whether there's some magic tricks that I know nothing about. And so I took classes for 6 months and realized, well, there wasn't really much. I was more interested in how she runs her business, because she had the type of business that I wanted, just made to measure, like really small boutique, never been interested in the fashion industry. And then I thought, well, I have no idea whether anybody will ever buy anything I make, right? But there was literally only one way to find out. And I'm like, I want to know. And for me, failure was the smallest of problems, right? I always say, like, I'm not fearless, but I fear regret a lot more than I fear failure, right? I rather thought, well, you know what? I want to know. Because you know what it's like when you go and you walk past the shopping window and there's a dress that really pulls you. You're like, ooh, that dress is just amazing. And every time you walk past, it pulls you, it pulls you. And there's only one way to get it out of your system, and it's trying it on. And it can go two ways. Either you go, oh boy, that looked better on the doll. And then, but then you can walk past it and it just doesn't pull anymore, right? Or you put it on and you go, that's mine, and we're happy ever after, right? So, and I thought, I want to try on the dress. Like, I literally need to try it on, because I'm going to go crazy if I keep walking past it, and always wonder. And I didn't want to look back what life in Spain would have been like, later on. That I dreaded much more than having a go. And I kind of almost counted on it to go pear-shaped, but yeah, definitely wanted to know.
Wow. Just wow. I love that. I absolutely love that. And
the dresses evolved. Like, I didn't even, like, see, the thing is, what ended up my flag being my style, a classic case of iteration, evolution, without taking that step to think, oh, stuff it, I'll just see what happens. I would have never, because when I got there, all of a sudden I saw that in the clothing chains like Zara and Mango and all of these, that they're full of roughly little, the stuff I wanted to make, the shops were full of it. And I'm like, ooh, that's going to be difficult, because obviously I can't compete on price with these. And then I saw, but then once I was there, I saw that, wait, dancers have their stuff made to measure, right? Because these dresses are incredibly tight fitting and they're not elastic usually. So, and everybody has like standard sizes, won't cut it, right? And that stuff there is no shop that sells this, right? And all of a sudden I saw, wait, there's a market here. But I couldn't have seen that if I hadn't gone there to give it a go.
Exactly.
Right? And my flagship product, when I first started, even when I already started selling costumes to dancers, I didn't know it existed.
I love that. It's so powerful. That is so powerful, because it's just such a beautiful case study of what you've been describing as the steps. And I've been kind of typing them into the comments as the steps, because I think it's important. A lot of times people listen to lives and then they tune in and they tune out or whatever it is. But I really I want people to be able to see the steps and kind of go, wait, that's the part I need to listen to, because that's the part I get stuck at.
Yeah.
And so I thank you so much for sharing that. I have a question for you. What is your definition of confidence?
It's what happens when you don't let your little monkey mind take over. I think it's the default setting. If you look at a little child, it's like that's the default. And the only thing that gets in the way is our little monkey mind making up stories. And we kind of then think, oh, must be something to it. He yells that loud in my ear.
Yeah, because children are confident. They don't know, and then they learn those things.
Yeah.
So that it is.
So it's not something you need to get. It's something that you just need to learn to stop getting in the way of.
Yeah, that's beautiful. That's really beautiful. And I think that's the thing, is that very often people get too much into their monkey mind, into their own head.
And it's an easy trap to fall into if you're not aware that the monkey mind's just the monkey mind. Like, that's just thoughts that don't really mean, like, that you're feeling insecure about something is not an indication of how you're doing.
Exactly.
It's an indication of where your mind's at, right? So that's all it says. And I think the way we are brought up, it's always, oh, you make me feel like this makes me feel like, so we are taught to think that something else, somebody else makes us feel something, so that that whatever we are feeling is an indication of how things in the world are, right? And and the moment you see that, oh wait, that's actually not true, because my partner can do something and sometimes I'm kind of like, I want to throttle him, and other days I don't mind at all, and he does the same thing. So it's not about what he does or doesn't do, right? So, and I think when you see that there is no, and sometimes you hear people talking about doubting and self-doubt when you're not quite sure, right? And you get yourself into a spin. And I must say, I had that, where you sometimes think, well, if my business gets to whatever stage, then obviously, and then you hear somebody who's been like your mentor, like the person you've looked up to, and he goes, oh yeah, I sometimes get up in the morning thinking, oh, I don't know what I'm doing here. Have I bitten off more than I can chew? I don't really know whether I'm good enough for this. And you think, oh, okay. So self-doubt has nothing, it's no indication of how well your business is doing. And it doesn't mean it won't go like, yeah, you're going to have days where you just doubt yourself. Okay.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. Just take the dog for a walk and come back when it's gone, right? When it's over.
Yeah. And there are so many huge, successful, business people and public figures that have that imposter voice, that have that voice. It
doesn't go away, and it isn't an indication for how well you're doing. It's just like, okay, little monkey mind's on, it's on overdrive today. And your monkey mind, and I've heard that saying also in connection with money, where you think, oh, when I have $1 million, then I won't worry about money anymore. And then you hear about millionaires who wake up every morning scared that today is the day they lose it all. Like, oh, yes. That has nothing to do with the amount either. So it's just literally monkey mind kind of, there'll be days when it's louder and there's other days when or you can go from one extreme to another in a minute or two.
Yeah. And again, see, I love what you've done with the language there. Instead of being like doubt and fear and, really heavy things, you're talking about monkey mind. I mean, that's one of the key things to, overcoming your imposter is to name it. And, you can name it monkey mind, you can name it Fred, it doesn't matter. Yeah. But you're talking about that and going, oh, okay, that's loud today. And that's it. And that's it.
Yeah.
Okay, so where can people find you? I mean, obviously you're in the Confidence to Cabaret community, so they can find you in there. And where else can people find you?
Well, I'm on Instagram, I'm on LinkedIn, ankeherrmann.com, like my name all together. Like that's my website, that's my main landing, main landing place. So it's quite, yeah, I'm easy. You can type in "taming the tech monster," that'll get you to me. So I'm easy to find.
Yeah, you are easy to find, and I'm so glad that we found each other. I'm just so glad. I've looked forward to this
Yeah,
because
me
we were
too.
talking about like how are we gonna talk about confidence and what are we gonna be saying, and then we started talking about dresses, and I was like, okay, I already love you, like just because. Just because that's got to be a crazy story. You don't just fall into that, and then thank you so much for sharing your steps and your process. And it's one thing to understand those things, but it's a whole other thing to do them. So reach out if you need help in the doing them, because we can't do it all. We don't know everything, and there's a lot of time and cost to trying to figure it out, and then kind of hitting our head against a brick wall when you could go to somebody who can help you figure it out,
Yeah,
such as you.
I couldn't agree more, because so often you hear like, "Oh, I spent all Saturday trying to set up this thing." And I'm like, "Well, that's a 10-minute job. What on earth were you doing all that day, right?" And and then you think about, well, it's not. It's I think people often, especially when we're starting out, there's this like, "Oh, we can't really I need to earn the right to get help, right?"
Mm-hmm.
And there's like you don't think about what could you have done. I mean, first of all, what could you have done that whole Saturday you spent trying to fiddle around and trying to set up something, right? So that's like, okay, loads of work, walks with the dogs, and lovely barbecues, and but it's also the longer that takes, it's like, okay, how many people on your email list have you missed out on in the months you've been trying to fuck around with it? How
Yeah.
many people haven't been able to come to your website and find out what you do because you've been dragging, because it's not easy, right? I think that's the part that people often don't really take into account, how much you're actually missing out on when you try and fuff around and get frustrated, and then you throw it in and don't do anything, and then you come back to it because you feel guilty, and that whole spiral, that's the one that goes down, right? So we don't really want that.
Yeah, no, we don't want to go down. We don't want to go down.
No.
I just wanted to share this beautiful comment about we can treat self-doubt like a check-in, because I think
Yes.
that's we really can. It's kind of like, okay, so, and then you say like,
It's
now
a
we do
signal.
more dog walks. Yeah, exactly. And then give yourself the remainder, the reminder that you've been successful, and lean in, and then move forward. And I think that's so important, because a lot of times we don't celebrate our successes. I have a confidence challenge going right now. I'm going to do a 2-week check-in. We check in with each other, regularly, but we have every couple of weeks, we have a check-in about how are you doing? What's your actions? And the thing that I'm constantly reminding is, okay, hold on. Before you talk about what you're doing next, just you've talked about what you've done. Now, what have you celebrated? And let's celebrate those things. And it's not a default for most of us.
No.
It's so
true.
important, so important. So lots of walks, lots of getting your mind around it, lots of shutting down that chatter. And there are lots of things that you can do. You can, have a strong meditation or journaling practice. You can, or, whatever that is, your mindful practice of, going for a walk or whatever it is, and then reaching out to somebody else. Because like you say, what could you have been doing for that? I've done that so many times where I've spent a whole Saturday and I've been so frustrated, because when I figure it out, I'm like, that took minutes.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So thank you for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me. That was so much fun.
It was so much fun, and thank you for your patience with my Wi-Fi. Oh my
I'm
goodness!
used to dealing with tech monsters, so that's all right.
I was so calm because I knew about what you do, and I was like, it's okay, you'll get it, you'll understand. And I wasn't, for the first time, I wasn't sort of screaming like, what is happening? I was like, okay, okay, so what else could I try? What else could I try? And, and we got there.
But
And
you see,
yet,
the experience is totally different, isn't it? Because there was a problem, but if you think, that's interesting, well, so, oh, okay, what's the like? It's an entirely different experience than if you go down like, oh my god, So
yes,
yeah,
entirely.
love it.
Entirely. Thank you so much. Thank you for your contributions. Thank you for sharing. And please do reach out if if this resonates with you, or there's a part of it, because what I love about you is that you're not, kind of like okay, so we go to step 1 and then we work through the, 20 steps or whatever, because I might be on step 10 and then I might have skipped step 6 and I might, it's very different for each of us.
Yeah.
And I love that, because I think there's too much of us going, oh, well, I have to sign up for a 12-month program and I have to do all the things. And I've done lots of them already.
Yeah,
So,
totally.
So do get in
and
touch.
I think give ourselves also space to explore, because that early stage is like, I always say, imagine like your parents let you loose in a toy store and say, don't come back for 8 hours at least, right? And we always think creativity equals output, and it doesn't.
No.
Right? So there's always that phase where you just explore, like, oh, what about this? Maybe the other thing. And people really beat themselves up there quickly and think, oh, I must be more focused. Well, no, just remember that exploration phase. You need to know what's there. You need to allow your mind to bring all these ideas into a shape. You need to give your mind the time to digest it all and to try out and see what's there. And then, oh, that thing inspires me. So that process, like, let it be.
Yeah.
And I think most of the time we try and sort of shortcut and say, oh, I haven't been productive. Yes, you have. Like, remember that when you wake up in the morning and all of a sudden, like, oh, I know now. This. Yeah, because your mind's had time to digest it all. And I think we try and sort of rush that often. And it leaves us with this like, oh my God, I'm not productive enough, right? So productivity isn't always output.
Absolutely. Productivity isn't always output. That's beautiful. Thank you so much for being here. And
you.
I can't wait till we speak again.
I look forward to it.
Okay, I'm Heather Jean, and I'm reminding you that it is your body, it is your world, and it is your stage. Take up space. I'm so excited. I'm doing a cabaret. I'm not performing tonight. I'm managing an event tonight for Cabaret. And you know what? Those people are going to show up. They're going to put on an amazing show, and they are going to have a great time. And I always say you can you can do hard time, or you can have a good time. And why would you not choose having a good time?
Yeah, no reason.
Thank you so much again.
Have a wonderful time then.
Thank you.
I look forward to hearing all about it.
Oh, yes. I'll post a picture of all the candles. We have 3,000 candles going to happen. I know. And then there's a Nina Simone tribute, which is going to be stunning. I'm so excited. Awesome. So I'm in the venue now. I'm a little bit echoey. I'm just going to set up everything in a few minutes, and I'm so excited. But thank you again for being here. Yes. I'll speak to you soon. Okay.
Bye.
Bye.